For this face, I'm using that image that was from the Stampington and Company 2007 magazine. This is a rubber stamp that you could purchase, and it was from Karen Anderson of Sweden that created these rubber stamps. And I love this image in this face, so that's what I'm going to use on mine. So what I did was you could use this directly from the magazine. That would be perfectly fine. And I want to use it in different ways in my journals, so I'm going to keep this face because I really like it. So I scanned it with my scanner and I printed it onto a creamy colored cardstock. You could print it on white. I'm going to add some color to it with colored pencils and things, but I didn't want to have to color in all that skin tone, so that cheats it, and it's a little trick to print it on some tan cardstock. So I'm going to use this as an image for one of my paper dolls. If you're using a magazine image of just a photograph out of a magazine, or a magazine image that's like this, or something you've printed on paper or cardstock, you don't want to fussy cut this out in this first step. So you want to leave it as it is, big with edges all the way around it. And like me, I'm going to color this first, so I'm going to go ahead and color this image, or you could color this image on its paper. But don't fussy cut it out yet. To get started on faces, I've given a whole bunch of different examples of different things that we can use for different levels of ability. So if you're brand new and you want to buy a kit off of like Etsy, this is just a printable. And this is a sticker that is a cute face. It came out of a Jane Davenport book. In the back of her book, she has all these stickers that you can just peel and stick on, and then either draw and do more artwork around it. But that's a perfect face for making a paper doll. So those are easy to start with. This one came from Pinterest. This was a printable that was free on Pinterest, and I colored in her face, and then I drew hair and a headband and her hair up in a ponytail on this one to create a pretty face. So you can do things like that. Here is a magazine image. She's got a perfect face that's very dynamic, and it would be a perfect size for a paper doll. And then I've got my image that I printed onto, I actually made it a little bit bigger and printed it onto cream colored cardstock. And then I also used a Dina Wakley face stamp from Dina Wakley's set, and I used Ranger Archival ink in black and stamped that. So here are a bunch of different ideas for faces, and we'll use all of them in this example. And I've got my cardboard piece. This is actually some pretty thick poster board, which would be perfect also. So I'm going to use that for mounting my images onto. I roughly cut out the images and I leave a border around them, a space around them. And I kind of cut away the parts that you're not going to use, like the bodies, things like that. And even these, this face that I printed out, I'm going to make that more stable. And my sticker, I'm going to go ahead and peel that and stick it. And same with this one, I'm going to cut out I think I'm going to do her whole body. It's kind of a good place to start. Okay, and I'm going to lay them out of my cardboard and get them kind of close together because I don't want to waste any of my cardboard as I save it for other parts. And so just lay them all out like that. Now I'm going to take some matte gel medium, and you don't want it to be the liquid kind, you do want it to be the gel kind so it's very thick. the thick kind. And I'm going to apply the matte gel medium to the back of the image and then to the cardboard. And stick it down. And you can go over the top. You just want to be sure that you get a nice smooth image glued down really well with no wrinkles underneath. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and do that to all those images and glue them down. Once the images are completely dry, that's when you're going to want to fussy cut them out. But what you want to do is decide how you're going to use them. On ones like this that are a circle, if you just cut that circle out, when you go to attach this to a body, you'd have to lay that over the top of the body, and she'd have no neck, nothing to connect it to. And so for me, I like to come in and add in a little neck image in here and give it a tab so that you could glue that behind and have it sit up a little bit higher. Same with the head. If you're going to put something like a crown or a hat, like this little round image that was a sticker, I'm going to go ahead and add extra up here. Now I can always trim this off later, but I'm going to add extra cardboard like this so that it gives me a place where I can glue on flowers or a crown or put hair on, instead of it being just this little tiny round circle that you're only going to be able to put things behind. So hopefully that makes sense. But again, this one needs a tab, a neck, so that you can put it behind the image. So I just draw that in, and then when I trim it out, I leave those on, in cardboard. And you're going to decorate over them, but it gives you something extra to adhere to. Otherwise, you've just got this little circle floating around. So I've got my head, my face, I've got some area up here that I can decorate, and I've got this that I can paint or color a neck shade and have it coming out from behind something to add it to a body. So I'm going to go ahead and trim all these out, and on this circle I'm going to leave extra around this one as well. On this magazine image, I'm going to leave it exactly as is because I have an idea for her, and the top of her head, or the shape of her head, is perfect for the idea that I have. So I'm going to just cut out this one and leave her hair and head shape as it is. So you kind of have to plan out a little in your mind of what you want to do and how you want to decorate as you cut out your pieces. Here they are trimmed out, and they each have room up above their heads for adding things if I want to decorate them. And so now I just need to choose which one I want to make my first doll out of. And the first step that I always do, with all of my body parts, is I have a water brush that I have filled with some black ink, and I added some water to kind of thin down the ink a little bit. And I use this, you could use any other kind of brush marker, to go around the edges on their sides. The edges are white from the cardboard, and I like to go around those edges. You could do it this way with a brush pen and some ink, and just make those white edges no longer white. The other thing you can use is a distress tool. That's the Ranger one, and some Ranger archival ink or Tim Holtz distress ink, either way. And pick up some ink and go around those edges with some ink this way. But I like to do all the pieces. I do the arms, the legs, the body, everything. The first step I give them is to get rid of that white edge. It's those little details that make your final doll look just so much nicer. I've decided that this magazine face that I chose, I love her dynamic face and the black rounded top to her head. It's perfect for an idea that I had for making a bee-themed doll, and I had this from an Etsy printable, a download file that I got on Etsy. And so I'm going to use this body with this head. So I'm going to do the same thing, and I'm going to take this body in my matte gel medium, and I'm going to put it down to some cardboard and cut it out. I looked through my magazines trying to find just the perfect legs, and I found these that I had already trimmed out. And it's okay if they're fussy cut out already. It's just if you fussy cut them first and then glue them down, then you're fussy cutting them a second time. That's why I do it like I do the faces, where I usually glue them down with space and trim it out, and you're only trimming it out once. But I think I'm going to use these anyway, and the one leg is shorter than the other, and I have an idea for what I want to do to make my legs movable. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to extend these. Just with my pencil, I'm drawing the legs up higher. Let me zoom that in so you can see. So see, I added some extension to those legs. And now I'm going to go ahead and glue these down to the cardboard with matte medium, and I'm going to cut them out, including those extensions. Now here are my three elements so far. I've got the body, the legs, and the head all put down to their cardboard pieces and cut out. So for this body, what I want to do, I could make a rounded neck. I don't like the shape of it for putting the head on the body. So I like to shape the top of these, and like I think for her, I'm going to give her kind of a scoopy neck. So I'm just going to cut out a little notch like that. And then when you put that over her, look at how that transformed that into her having a neck and a great place to put her head. So I'm going to go ahead and use my art glitter glue and put that into place. Glue stick doesn't work for these. They really need a better, stronger glue, and you may not want to purchase art glitter glue, but if you do, you'll be really glad that you did. But use something else, because glue stick just will not hold these paper dolls together. I've put my glue down, and now I'm going to just put her into place, and I think I'm going to tilt her head a little bit just to give her some character instead of straight up and down. Straight is okay, but curve just gives her a little bit more of a whimsical look. So that's glued into place. There is her head and her body. And now with her legs, I know I want to put some trim around the bottom of this, the body. And so I think I'm going to do that before I figure out the placement of the legs for height. So let me get my trim and show you that. You have to decide ahead of time which parts you want to be movable. Sometimes I just do the arms, sometimes I just do the legs, sometimes I do both. The reason you have to think about that ahead of time is for things like trim, I want to add this pretty yellow trim to the bottom of her little body here. If I glue this to the back side, the leg movement is going to be impeded by the lace. So I want to glue it to the front side. So you kind of have to decide ahead of time. Are you going to make those legs movable? And if so, you would want to put your trim on the top so that there would be a nice smooth edge for the mechanics of the legs moving behind. Hopefully that makes sense. So I'm going to go ahead and glue this trim on and let it dry so that I can see. I put the trim on before I add the legs, and the reason for that is sometimes if I do trim that is paper trim, like with sewing machine pattern, it makes the doll, it adds inches to that doll, and then when you add the legs behind for you to be able to see them, sometimes your doll will end up being too tall. So I put the trim on first and then I decide the length of the legs. This trim is straight and this body is curved. So to make this, well, if you curve this, you see how you get those gaps in the lace. So what I do is I start at one end and I always cut my lace. I don't like that piece there. So I always cut my lace and then I take a little bit of art glitter glue and I just put some along that edges. It almost acts like a phrase stop, so it keeps that trim from fraying and coming undone. It'll just keep it in place. So I start at one end and tack that down, and it may take a little time process for adding this lace, but it's worth it. And I use these plastic clips that I got from the dollar store to hold it into place while it gets tacky and dries into place so it doesn't come off. So I just put it in place and then clip it with my little clip. And then I'm going to put it aside and let that part dry. It only takes a few minutes for that to set, so then I take my clippy off. And when I go to round this corner and I get that little groove in there, I just take my scissors and make a little split in it. And I glue that split down into place. And then I start my trim next to it. Here's what I have so far. So I've got her body, her cute head, and I put my trim along the bottom edge. There were two places that I had to do those little splits, but you can barely see them when you overlap them over each other and you glue it into place. So it made it fit the curve, and I like that yellow at the bottom. It looks really cute. So I'm going to move on to the next video. This is going to end this video for now so they don't get too long. The next video will be about adding these legs and making them articulated and moving behind the body. And that'll be a fun trick to show you. So that'll be in the next video in the series. So thanks for watching, and I hope this is getting you started on your art paper doll. So just be creative and come up with your theme and start building from there.